Welcome back to Oilers TV's continuing coverage of the 2014 draft. Tom Gazzola, Jack Michaels, Bob Stauffer, and Chris Wescott as we bring you the Oilers TV mock draft brought to you by Sport Check. And we are in our new digs at the Sport Check location in West Edmonton Mall. This is beautiful, guys. First off, a thought on this, because this is, in my opinion, very sharp.
Well, you know, it makes us look a little bit better, which is the most important thing. But what I'd like to
that's a considerable reach.
What I'd like to pose to the panel is how in the world did the host end up with the #1 pick this year in this year's 2014 Oilers?
I've got some pull. I've got some pull here.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'd like to know how that happened exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, so lead us, Mr. Big Shot.
Well, all right. You guys know the routine. We did this last year. It starts out with me. We'll go 1 through 4, work our way back. We're going to do the top 16 picks. I'm the Florida Panthers right now. You guys ready to do this?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Stepping up to
You're moving the pick in real life.
Well, yeah. If I were to keep the pick as the Florida Panthers, my #1 overall choice would be Aaron Ekblad. The kid's a beast. We saw him at the Combine. He's well-spoken. He's a man-child, essentially, and on the back end, he could be a dominant force in this league for a long time. So, as the Florida Panthers, if they are to keep the pick, I'm saying they're going with Aaron Ekblad.
For the record, drafts in Philly, I think the Flyers are going to throw the kitchen sink to try to get Aaron Ekblad with the first pick. They've got some high-dollar contracts. Florida won a division with kind of an assortment of, out-of-whack contracts, and it's something that I think that organization would be comfortable taking on some money. I think Flyers are moving the pick. Aaron Ekblad's going to go #1. I think Sam Reinhart's going #2 to Buffalo. Look, the Sabres are going to be good in 3 or 4 years, but right now is they need NHL-ready players. And I think it's quite possible that of the 4, the majority feel that Sam Reinhart is ready to play in the NHL tomorrow. So I think the Sabres will go with Sam Reinhart. We know about his NHL pedigree. He doesn't really have a weakness to his game, and he's the one guy amongst the 4 where consistency doesn't seem to be an issue. So I think the Buffalo Sabres are going to take up Sam Reinhart with #2. Bob, you're in the 3 hole. You're the Oiler guy.
Just a second, a couple things. First of all, given Florida's position, I mean, I'm with you. I do think they end up moving the pick. But if they don't move the pick, Ekblad should be the slam dunk based upon their positional need as well. I mean, they've got a couple good centers that they like. They drafted Barkov last year.
Years ago, back to the future for the Panthers.
You focus in on, they've got Bukestad. They've also got Trocheck, who they like a lot as well. Eric Branson has not really panned out for them, as he's really a 5'6" D-man, and maybe could be a 4 down the road. So Ekblad, for sure, if Florida holds on to the pick. I'm with you as well on Reinhart. I just think that he's a guy that Buffalo needs an offensive center. They drafted a couple defensemen last year. They were the lowest scoring team in the NHL. And I do think in a cap world, it's not always about 100% who's the best player. There's some other factors that come into play. Edmonton's sitting in the 3 spot. They're comfortable being in the 3 spot. And if I'm the Edmonton Oilers, I'm selecting Leon Draisaitl. I know a lot of people, Central Scouting's got Sam Bennett #1. To me, Leon Draisaitl is a better fit for the Edmonton Oilers. 48 points in his final 22 games for a really bad Prince Albert team. Basically, he and Josh Morrissey willed Corey Klusen's squad into the playoffs this year. This is a guy that's going to be to German hockey what Andrzej Kopitar is to Slovenian hockey. And he knows that. That's part of what he's got to deal with in the future. And I also think that he plays here right away. He will not come across with the same confidence that maybe a Reinhart and Ekblad have. And that's because Reinhart and Ekblad have been wearing the mantle as the guys for the last 15, 16 months for this upcoming draft. Draisaitl, not everybody's going to have Draisaitl in their top 5, but I do, and I think Leon Draisaitl will be the Oilers' pick at #3.
He's going to be the highest ever drafted German ever, regardless of whether the Oilers take him. So Leon Draisaitl to Edmonton at 3. All right. Well, let's go south. What do you got?
Well, Bob messed up my draft because in my draft I actually had Sam Bennett, and you mentioned some of the qualities that make Leon Draisaitl the pick there at 3, and I completely agree that he could be the pick, and I think he is the pick. I also think that Sam Bennett's going to warrant some consideration for the Edmonton Oilers.
Obviously going to.
Well, yeah, because his competitive edge is something that Mac T and also Dallas Eakins have said they want to bring into their locker room. But if he's gone and Leon Draisaitl's a pick, which could happen, I have Calgary looking very long and hard at some of the bigger wingers available. Nick Ritchie is going to be in the conversation. Jake Virtanen is going to be in the conversation. But if I'm going strictly based on best player available, if Sam Bennett drops to 4, he's the pick there for me. Sean Monahan, Sam Bennett, nice 1-2 punch for the Calgary Flames.
All right, that brings us to the number 5 pick, and that, of course, belongs to the New York Islanders. I believe in this situation here, given what's happened over the last 4 picks, the Islanders will go with Michael Dal-Colle, a big, strong forward that can put up numbers on a team that has struggled, although they do have some offensive talent, of course, in John Tavares. They did lose Thomas Vanek after trying to re-sign him or sign him to a contract extension. They traded him away for essentially a pick, a second rounder. So I think the Islanders will try to restock the shelves with Dal-Colle.
That's interesting because I had Dal-Colle going to the Canucks in my draft. I think Vancouver might have gotten lucky because I thought Calgary might take a run at Jake Virtanen. So with Virtanen sitting out there and the Canucks looking to replace some significant offense in their own right, you have to figure obviously Ryan Kessler is going to move. So I'm going to say Vancouver steps up and takes Jake Virtanen in the 6 hole, which is a little bit high on some draft boards, but it's hard to ignore a guy with 45 goals. He's a little banged up, obviously. I think that affected the Hitmen's prospects, certainly in the Western Hockey League playoffs, but I think the Canucks will see the promise there, and you know what? Pure goal scoring is a rare commodity, even in the National Hockey League. Jake Virtanen to the Canucks.
And I do think Vancouver will join Philadelphia with a team that will chase that number 1 overall pick with the 6th and another player to Florida. But I am with you. If Virtanen's sitting there at 6, I think the Canucks do take him. That leaves Carolina at number 7. That's my pick. And when's the last time the Carolina Hurricanes had a big power winger? They haven't had one in a long time. Now, a lot of people think Hayden Fleury would make sense here. The Hurricanes have drafted a lot out of Red Deer over the years. You know, and Cam Ward came out of Red Deer. It's a pretty decent pick. Sutter as well, by the way. And so it's 2 pretty prominent first rounders. But I'm going to go with Nick Ritchie. I just think that they need that baggage smasher. A little bit of a risk because doesn't always bring it, but you know, I think he can get it turned in the right direction, give him some real size up front.
Toronto's another team, Bob, that might be looking to move up in this draft. But with Ritchie off the board, who's a pick that I think Toronto would look at, I'm going to go with William Nylander, and he's the most offensively skilled and dynamic player in the draft by many, described by many, and he's also one of the more talked about players at the Combine. 28 teams talked with him. He's very popular, and I think he'll go relatively high. Toronto gets a really dynamic player with that pick.
And my pick will be Kasperi Kapanen, the Finnish boy wonder, the son of Sammy, goes to the Jets at number 9.
All right. Well, if you're taking Kasperi Kapanen at 9, and I'm the Anaheim Ducks, who get the 10th pick from the Ottawa Senators, look, I know the Ducks' blue line appears crowded right now, but I think in a couple years, by the time Hayden Fleury's ready, Anaheim's going to have room for this guy. And they've already got some young talent on the blue line with Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm. I think Hayden Fleury makes a lot of sense to go to the Ducks at number 10 if he's still there. However, Tom, not to quarrel with your pick, but I mean, Winnipeg needs defense. They've got to take Hayden Fleury. They've got to start getting some prospects into their system on the back end.
Build around
offense isn't the real problem with Winnipeg in my mind. I think it's defending.
They do have Trouba, who's there right now, and Josh Morrissey, who they took last year. They had a pretty good playoff this year, but I could see Anaheim taking Fleury 10 as well, because I think we all expect that pick to be potentially in play to get that second line center for the Anaheim Ducks. Nashville is sitting in the 11 hole. I've got that pick, and you know, Nashville to me, Jack, what's that stat that you've got when it comes to drafting a forward for the Nashville Predators in terms of their production?
They have drafted 1 forward with more than 60 points in a single season, David Legwand, and 1 forward, and was a 7th rounder, by the way, to score 30 goals, and that's Patrick Hornqvist.
So I think what will happen is either Nicholas Ehlers or Brendan Perlini will be that pick. Now, I also think the Nashville Predators would consider moving that pick because I think they know they need to get some immediate help. On my mock, I had Ehlers going to Winnipeg, actually, so I'll go with Perlini. I think that Perlini would give them some size and some potential scoring. Again, they've only drafted the 130-goal scorer.
But in this draft,
Yeah.
if Ehlers is sitting there in our mock draft,
Yeah.
and you're Nashville, you're the Nashville GM right now, you're going to pass on Ehlers' upside
Yeah,
offensively?
well, and that's going to be one of those two guys.
Yeah.
So,
Perlini's more of a pred and mold, for
yeah,
sure.
and that's why I'll go with Perlini.
Well, Bob took my pick for the Arizona Coyotes, who are taking over the name Arizona at the draft. That's when they're going to be switching over. So the first pick in that era, and I was going to go with Perlini, but he's gone, so I'm going to pick the best player available, which is Ehlers. This kid lit up the Quebec League this year, 104 points. He's a good offensive player and someone that Arizona would like to have.
This brings us back to me. I'm the Washington Capitals with the 13 pick. I'm going to go with Alex Tuch here. He's a big-bodied forward. I mean, the Caps, it's been a really crazy year for these guys over the last little while. You know, new coach, new GM. What's going on with Alexander Ovechkin? Maybe this is a power forward type that could help them out down the road here. So Alex Tuch is my pick at 13.
Well, and he's shown the ability to play with awesome players. I mean, he played with Sonny Milano and Jack Eichel at a recent tournament, and you play with those two and fit in nicely. You know, you've got some upside. He's going to be going to Boston College. Bob, you're sitting in the 15 hole as Ken Holland with the Detroit Red Wings. So I'm going to do you a favor.
I know you are.
I'm going to do you a favor. You've got a hometown, homegrown product sitting for you at 15. So I'm going to collude a little bit here. And as Dallas, look, I think the Stars need game breakers almost as much as the Nashville Predators do. Kevin Fiala is a guy with tremendous speed, maybe the best speed in this draft. He's got a decent shot. He's the son of a coach, so you know his hockey IQ is sharp. He played for Switzerland at the World Juniors, and he's a guy who's also played against men in the Swedish Elite League. I think he has the opportunity to be a deep sleeper in this draft. If you want to call a top 15 pick a bit of a sleeper, Kevin Fiala to the Dallas Stars. They sorely need some game-breaking speed and offense.
Detroit Red Wings would block slap shots in the nude, their management team, to get Dylan Larkin. I mean, he just makes sense for that organization. Highly competitive American kid, is obviously a Michigan area product, is going to end up playing NCAA hockey in the state of Michigan. And he's a guy that, some think has a chance to be a Ryan Kessler type of player. Now, Ryan Kessler is a pretty good hockey player. I would suggest to you that theoretically, if the Edmonton Oilers were to trade down a bit in the draft into sort of the 12 through 20 role, that might be the type of guy that there'd be interest in, because I think there's some competitiveness from the player. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw him at the actual combine, I was a little surprised at how he hasn't completely matured yet physically, but
he will after 4 years at Michigan.
Or at least he'll probably play a couple.
But the Wings.
Yeah.
They're not going to move him in before he's 22
well,
anyways.
we'll see what happens with Detroit, but he totally would make sense for the Red Wings at 15.
All right, our last pick, Columbus Blue Jackets. Chris Wescott, you're their GM. Get to it.
There's so many options on the board here.
Jarmo let's hear it.
No, I'm looking at this draft and the way it's fallen, and I had Alex Tuch here. He went a couple picks early, and I'm a big fan of restocking the defensive cupboards when you start graduating defensemen to the NHL. So I was going to pick Julius Honka here, but instead I'm going to go with, you know what, actually I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with Honka. You're going to restock the defensive cupboards, and you're going to continue to evolve.
A Finn drafted by a Finn.
How about that?
Right.
Fitting.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, well, this was fun, and we hope you enjoyed watching this. Of course, we'll have continued coverage at the draft in Philadelphia next week. I'll be there. Jack will be there. Bob, of course, will be there, as will Wescott. We look forward to covering this, and we hope you tune in.